We begin this morning with news of yet another mass shooting, this time in Texas, where one person was killed and 5 others wounded at a cabinet-making business. The incident occurred just hours after President Biden unveiled his plans to curb gun violence in America. He described the current situation as a, quote, blemish on our character as a nation. The president's executive actions are modest, but signal a first step to combat what Mr. Biden calls an epidemic. Vice President Kamala Harris and Attorney General Merrick Garland joined him for yesterday's announcement at the White House Rose Garden. Naomi Ruchim is following this story. Naomi, in his speech, the president said his plan won't infringe on the Constitution, right?
Well, that's true, Tom. The president says nothing in his proposal interferes at all with the Constitution, and there are some conservatives who seem willing to work with him on some points. Still others, though, like the NRA, for example, say this roadmap dismantles the Second Amendment. The president calls that issue a phony argument. In his first major proposal on gun control, President Biden announced half a dozen executive actions.
Gun violence in this country is an epidemic, and it's an international embarrassment.
The plan cracks down on ghost guns, homemade firearms which don't have serial numbers and are often purchased without background checks. The Justice Department will also draft red flag legislation so states can keep guns out of the hands of people struggling with mental illness. Facing opposition from some conservatives, President Biden urged Congress to act.
They've offered plenty of thoughts and prayers, members of Congress, but they've passed not a single new federal law to reduce gun violence. Enough prayers. Time for some action.
In the very hours before and after the announcement, there were 2 more violent shootings. In South Carolina, former NFL player Philip Adams killed a prominent doctor, his wife, 2 grandchildren, and another man before turning the gun on himself. The motive is still unclear.
How many shots did you hear?
About 20.
And in Bryan, Texas, 1 person was killed and 5 others were wounded, including a state trooper, after a gunman opened fire at a cabinet manufacturing company.
We know that he was an employee of the cabinet shop, and I don't know a motive right now.
After a frantic manhunt, authorities arrested a suspect, 27-year-old Larry Bolin. And while gun control advocates consider the president's plan a good first step, any larger legislation would need approval by Congress. And Tom, with a split Senate, they would need 60 votes to pass something like that, which at this point does not seem likely. Tom?
It's tough to hear, Naomi. Getting Republican senators to pass gun reform legislation appears obviously to be an uphill battle. But GOP Senator Pat Toomey, who previously said he will not seek re-election next year, says there's one area he'd like to address. What more do we know about that?
Well, Tom, we're talking about background checks. This is the one point that it seems conservatives and Democrats may be able to come to some form of agreement here. It's something they've been discussing for years, but have not been able to reach a final discussion that really produced a fruitful piece of legislation. In this case, though, this year might be the one. And also, the House did pass 2 background check bills already, so there's some progress being made at this point, and that could continue. A lot of people hopeful that if nothing else, we can control the background check system in this country. Tom?
Yeah, we know that this vicious cycle that we see playing out time and time again, so many Americans are growing very tired of it. Naomi, thank you so much.